In the late 1960s and into the 70s, the Communist Party of Kampuchea, aka the Khmer Rouge, started to grow in power within Cambodia with their mission of creating a communist government based almost entirely on agriculture. The leader of this group was Pol Pot, who instigated a Cambodian civil war that killed many, but when he won the war was when the true horrors started. Pol Pot, bad guy. I'm going to go out on a limb. Bad guy.
You can come at me with your opinions.
Yeah, I know we got a lot of Pol Pot. We got a lot of potbellies out there listening to us, but I'm going to say he's a bad guy. When he came to power, he instituted policies where most people who were rich or educated in any way were executed or tortured, and basically everyone else was enslaved to work the farms that would feed the entire company.
Right.
Which is so scary for me with everything that's going on right now to learn, because whenever these horrible things like what's happening in America right now happen, and people say they've been planning this, they're doing this on purpose. Part of me is how could they know to do all that in advance? But when
There's a playbook.
Well, yeah, when I they all read Pol Pot's biography. When I read that Pol Pot was purposely targeting people who were educated. Well, when I first heard rich, I'm like, okay. But then when he went after educated people, I'm like, oh, right. That's why bad people in America want to make it harder for people to have basic freedoms and access to education.
You're getting
That's why.
You're getting it.
Because they know better than to support people. If they were educated, they would know better.
They would say that this is bad and you need to stop it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Pol Pot's not the one that was all the teachers and anyone over 100 years old would get executed because he wanted hey, everybody, we're starting from the year zero. And they're like, what's that mean? No, that's
maybe. You might be thinking of ISIS. I know that ISIS wanted to go back to a different age.
Right.
But maybe. I didn't look too much into the atrocities of Pol Pot's.
Yeah, I get all my genocidal leaders confused.
If you could have dinner with 3 genocidal leaders. So even these people who were not outright murdered were often starved to death, died of disease, or died of overwork. Between the years of 1975 to 1979, it's believed that some 3 million Cambodian people were killed in this genocide. During this time as well, much like what was going on literally one country over to the east in Vietnam around the same time, when people like David Tran of Hoi Fong, among them, were fleeing en masse from the Viet Cong, hundreds of thousands of Cambodian people were fleeing their country as well. Awful time to be in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
During this time, President Gerald Ford welcomed 130,000 refugees into the U.S. in a compassionate gesture I can only imagine part of the country being outraged about. One of these people in particular had a massive influence, arguably one of the biggest influences anybody has ever had on L.A., I dare say. Unfortunately, this story has to start in the OC, bitch.
Oh, no.
Actually,
never mind. I'll be outside for this part.
Actually, still in Cambodia, bitch. The Supreme Court said I could use that word.
Yeah, twice. As long as I use it twice and I give them $50,000.
One more time, though. And we used it in a referential sense
right.
to a television show. Enter Ted Ngoy. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah. Ngoy. Because for years, I had a friend in middle school named Andy Nguyen, and I always pronounced it Andy Nguyen. And now, as I'm a grown man, I know that it's Nguyen. So for so many years, he never corrected me. So now I'm really self-conscious of people's Vietnamese and Cambodian names. So please tell me if I'm pronouncing Ngoy wrong. But keep it to yourself. Before all that horror, in the 1960s, his Cambodian name was Boon Tek, and as a young man, he was in love with a girl named Sugan Thini that he met in high school. As it turned out, she lived across the street from him, so he would play the flute out of his window for her to hear at night. The problem was her parents were high up in the Cambodian government. That was a problem because he was poor as hell, and her parents didn't want her associating with him.
Classic.
A classic Boon Tek and Sugan Thini Shakespearean drama. The young lover's solution to this made complete sense to 17-year-olds when he decided to sneak into her family's guarded compound one night, climb into her bedroom, and then hid under her bed for 45 days so that they could spend time together.
Wow.
I don't know where his family thought he went.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the bathroom, I don't know what was going on.
Yeah. I'm just eating more. I need 2 plates of food. I just been really hungry and I need to eat my room too.
It must have been like E.T. and he was, who drank all the beers? They look in her closet and he's dressed like a little doll.
Like a little doll, yeah.
A weird plan that worked until one day her parents found out and threatened to kill him.
Okay.
But backed down and said that instead of killing you, you just have to go to our daughter and tell her that you are an untrustworthy womanizer who never loved her. That's all you have to do. It's either that or we kill you.
What are the options again?
What's option 1 again?
Yeah. Say it slower this time.
They even hid behind a curtain in the room to make sure her when he did
God.
it. But instead, he went up to her and he saw how heartbroken she was by what he was saying. He grabbed a knife and stabbed himself.
Oh, geez.
While he was in the hospital recovering, she then tried to take her own life, and her parents was like, okay, fine. You two can date.
Okay, you've proved that you love each other by trying to kill yourselves. The original ending of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. The Capulets and the Montagues open up a donut shop. The two eventually got married and had 3 kids, and he weaseled his way into his wife's family's good graces to get a job as a government liaison for Cambodia in Bangkok, Thailand. Cool. Bangkok, Oriental City. I'll reference that song again that you do not know, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someday we're just going to have a dance party. And we're just going to dance to songs that the people from ABBA wrote but didn't record.
My favorite band. Not ABBA.
How dare you?
My favorite band, the band that's not ABBA.
Then in April 1975, while he was home in Phnom Penh, I also might be pronouncing that wrong, but please keep it to yourself.
Write me a letter full of compliments and just sneak that in there, how to pronounce it.
And I've living with enough shame about what I did to Andy Nguyen Nguyen, so please don't make me don't make my adult ears as hard as
Don't tack any more things that I need to be embarrassed about.
That's what this whole show is for. I have 103 episodes of that already. The unthinkable happened April 1975, and his country's government collapsed.
Right.
And people like him, this was Pol Pot, people like him were being hunted for execution. He and his wife and kids managed to flee to Thailand while her parents stayed behind and were executed.
Oh boy.
From there, they came to the U.S. as part of the Indochina Migration and Refugee Assistance Act, and he ended up in a refugee camp in Camp Pendleton along with a nephew and 2 nieces. From here, they were sponsored by the Peace Lutheran Church in Tustin, where they worked. Again, this is the Orange County section. I swear we'll bring it to Los Angeles
behind the
eventually.
orange curtain, yeah.
First, we were behind the red curtain, and then it got orange. It's getting a little clearer.
It's getting a little clearer, yeah.
Ted, as he now went by, worked as a janitor. Oh my God. You want to talk about jobs. He worked as a janitor at the church until 6 p.m. when he would then go to work as a salesperson until 10 p.m. when he would then go to work at a gas station until 6 a.m., putting in 17-hour days to make enough money to provide for his family.
Oh my God.
I can't imagine.
No,
I cannot imagine.
That's torturous. You're a salesman until 10 o'clock?
I don't, maybe it's like calling, I don't know.
Calling other states.
Yeah. He's calling people in Cambodia.
Yeah.
Would you like to buy an encyclopedia? But during one of these god-awful night shifts at the gas station, he noticed that the donut shop next door was doing brisk business. Again, people get into the donut shop not of like, I love donut.
Yeah.
It's like, I love money. I love profit margins. He had no idea what a donut was. So he went inside and saw them selling what looked to him like something they had back in Cambodia called Nam Kong, which are basically donuts, but they're made with rice flour and they're less sweet.
Oh, wow.
So he tried it and he loved these big fat American donuts. So he asked the women working there how he could open up his own donut shop because they seemed to be doing a lot of business. They suggested he try going to Winchell's and their donut shop owner training program because Winchell's was looking for people after one of its many, many layoffs. So he did, and he got hired into it as the first Southeast Asian person in the Winchell's management training program in 1979 and was now running a Winchell's near the Balboa Pier in Newport Beach, not far from the Banana Stand.
Wow.
Another Arrested Development connection. He said, they asked me if I was ready and I wasn't. I was so tired. I wanted to sleep, but I said, yes, I'm ready.
So it's easy. I just added more hours to the day.
I talked to the government
Yeah.
and we added 8 more hours for me to sleep. It's a 32-hour day now. He did everything he could to try to make as much profit as possible, up to and including washing and reusing the coffee stirrers, which Winchell's made him stop doing because that's gross.
Right.
But I admire the dedication.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There are things like that where I'm like, that's smart, but also super sad.
And disgusting.
Yeah.
After 6 months of running this place, he then fired his entire staff and had his wife and kids come work in it for free instead, which kind of sucks, but Winchell's was A-okay with that.
Oh my God.
His wife ran the counter even though she couldn't speak English, and the kids were folding boxes and pouring coffee. After a year, he had saved enough money to buy his own donut shop in La Habra, not quite LA, La Habra Heights is LA.
Yes.
For $30,000. If you'll watch the video, go to our TikTok and don't leave a comment. For $30,000, he bought this place called Christie's that he also ran with his wife and kids. His wife actually, when she became a U.S. citizen around this time, changed her name to her English name became Christy for the donut shop.
That's cute.
He used all the tricks he had learned from Winchell's in this shop, like baking the donuts in small batches throughout the day, not only so that they were fresher throughout the day, but also the smell would always be there. Like the Randy's Donuts needs the Febreze thing.
Smell, yeah.
It would draw people in all day long. And it was so successful that within a year, he had 4 donut shops of his own.
Wow.
And within a couple years after that, he had 20 donut shops of his own. He usually kept the original names of all the donut shops and didn't change them when he took them over because he wasn't interested in building a brand. Like he did not care. He just wanted to successfully run donut shops, which he did.
That's perfect.
This story gets a little dark, but like this is overall, this is a very good man. Like he does not care about like, I'm going to take over the donut. I'm going to push like he doesn't care. He just wants to be a part of it. And he is. Running a bunch of donut shops is something anyone should be praised for.
Yeah.
But what this growing donut network he was running did so much, not only for the LA donut scene, but also for his fellow Cambodian refugees.
Right.
There were, of course, thousands of other Cambodian refugees like him pouring into Southern California. And he knew how hard it was to start a new life here. So he started hiring these people into his donut shops, not only just as employees, but he taught them how to run a donut shop.
Fantastic.
You give a man a donut, he'll donut for a day. You teach a man to donut, he'll donut for the rest of his life.
Right. He will do nut.
Do or do not. There is a donut shop here for you. So he would teach them how to run the stores themselves with the goal of them opening up their own shop one day like he did. That first Christie's he bought, actually, he leased to some other Cambodians when they bought their second place.
Okay.
After a while, he was buying up and leasing out donut shops specifically for new refugees that were coming on. Like, this person here is they need a job. Okay, I'll buy you a donut shop.
Yeah, and
I get money, you run it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I get money. At his height, he owned 65 stores, all or most of which he was leasing out to fellow Cambodian refugees. And that stretches Orange County, Los Angeles at this point. But not only that, he sponsored the visas of hundreds of other refugees, paid for many of their airfares to come to America, and even let some of them live in his house until they found a place. Wow. He was the Cambodian donut Oscar Schindler, Oscar Cinnamonler. But even for the Cambodian refugees who he wasn't affiliated with, they were moving into LA and seeing fellow Cambodians running donut shops that Ted Ngoy had leased to them. So they saw the precedent of Cambodians running donut shops and decided to get into the game of their own decision without the help of Ngoy. So the legacy he created perpetuated. It grew and grew. Like you come to America, you open a donut shop.
That's that's the new dream.
Yeah. Like with Chinese people coming in the 1800s, like you opened a laundry place because other Chinese people did it and it worked for them.
And now there's an industry. Yeah.
There's an industry now. There's a Cambodian donut industry because of Ted Ngoy.
Crazy.
In the mid 90s, the LA Times estimated that there were some 2,400 Cambodian-owned donut shops in the LA area.
Crazy.
And it was thanks to them that Winchell's was dethroned as the most prominent donut shop in the area, and mom and pops took the crown. This is why there are so many little donut shops. It was also thanks to these places that there's so much variety in the donut shop scene, which I love, rather than it's all just Yum Yum. It's all just Winchell's. And they're the reason Krispy Kreme and Dunkin' Donuts never really took off in LA. In the late 90s, Dunkin' Donuts had their first invasion of LA and they all closed because of these Cambodian donut shops. And even now, there's one Krispy Kreme in all of LA. There's like 5 Dunkin' Donuts maybe. And it's because of these little places. They're also responsible for the iconic pink box being the go-to for to-go donuts in LA. It's up for debate whether it was Ngoy or not, but it was definitely a Cambodian donut shop owner who asked the Westco company, who's been around since the 1920s in Pico Rivera, if they had anything cheaper than the standard white boxes. So they made a bunch of 9x9x4 boxes out of some leftover pink stock they had, and a legend was born. Wow. It was all just like the immigrant drive to like, let's not be stupid. We need money. I'm not paying an extra 10 cents a box, so it's white. I don't care. Plus, pink is closer to red, which is a lucky color in Cambodia, as opposed to white, which is used for mourning. And also, when you see a pink box, it triggers a pink anything. It triggers sweetness. You get so hungry seeing that box. No,
when I see that pink box, my tongue's already like switching to sweet. I'm like, no, I'm not ready.
Lunch is canceled. There's donuts in the vicinity. Meanwhile, Ngoy was doing great. He helped hundreds, if not thousands, of refugees start a new life and had $20 million in the bank, which he promptly squandered. As his success grew, Ngoy developed a taste for an extravagant lifestyle, buying cars and clothes and a huge house, which is one thing, but then he discovered blackjack.
Oh no.
He tried it on a trip to Las Vegas and pretty soon was taking trips to Las Vegas for days, losing $5,000 a game. He would hide from his wife and kids when they'd walk through the casinos trying to find him so they wouldn't make him leave. And when he lost, he would get angry. This was a seriously bad addiction. God. He tried twice joining Buddhist monasteries to try to cure himself. And each time he's like, all right, back to Vegas after he was done. God. Pretty soon he was asking the owners of the donut shops he had leased out for loans, and they were so grateful to him for what he had done, they couldn't say no, even though word got around that he's not paying these loans back. This forced him into start signing the ownership of these stores to the owners, forging his wife's signature to do so, which meant he then lost his income from these places, which meant he went broke. He lost all of his money gambling. Eventually, he was down to one store, which he sold for $85,000 cash, which he put in the trunk of his car. On his way home, he got pulled over by a cop because he was so behind on his car payments. His car was considered stolen. So they were taken into the station, and when they got the car back, the cops had stolen the money out of the trunk of the car.
God.
So he now had nothing. He had absolutely nothing. And having alienated himself from everyone he knew in Southern California, he and his wife returned to Cambodia to try to start fresh and became born-again Christians.
Wow.
And then Christy flew back to the U.S. for the birth of one of their grandkids, and while he was gone, Ted cheated on her, and they got divorced, and she left him forever. So now Ted had absolutely nothing. No family, no money, no donuts.
Yeah.
All he had was the Republican Party. He was a big Republican in the United States. Orange County. It's like, he had to sign a contract to come live in Orange County. He had raised money for George H.W. Bush's campaign. He was invited to his inauguration. He was friends with John McCain. He used these Republican contacts of his to start the garment industry in Cambodia, for better or worse, mostly worse, I think, and made some money that way, and decided to use that money to form like a Republican Party in Cambodia.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Can we bring back the Khmer Rouge? It was called the Free Development Republican Party, and he ran for office as the head of this party.
Okay.
He lost, but he did get the job of the government advisor on commerce and agriculture, but now it was 2002, and he was broke again for paying for his failed election campaign. Then he had to flee to the U.S. once again because he had a falling out with a political rival and feared for his life, but his family here in Southern California didn't want to see him, and donut places wouldn't give him work because of what he had done to them. It was his absolute lowest moment that lasted 4 years before he flew back to Cambodia homeless. He now does real estate in Cambodia. You can see the documentary of his life that came out a couple of years ago called The Donut King, but good luck finding it. I tried watching it and it's nowhere to be found. Back here in LA, his legacy is still going strong, but things are definitely changing. There are still some 1,500 Cambodian-owned donut shops in California, and they're a really great immigrant story we should all be proud of and give money to while they're still around. But like I said, these shops aren't really going away, but they are changing. The older generation is retiring, and their children, the so-called donut kids, which is the Cambodian American kids who grew up folding donut boxes in their parents' donut shops, are taking over these stores, but they're trying to keep up in trendy LA and making the places look sleek and have the donuts be more Instagrammable by covering them in candy, making them look like pandas and sushi, which I am not a fan of at all. I think those do not taste good. Even worse, the pink boxes are going away because they want, like, we got our branded boxes. Right. California Donuts is a perfect example of this in Hollywood. It was started by Cambodian refugees, but now it's known for novelty donuts that are not good, I dare say. But that's enough talk about Cambodian donut places, Greg. Let's eat a Cambodian donut place.
What did you get for us?
We've got one final donut. This was from a place called Uncle Joe's Donuts, which I assume is for Joe Biden.
Where was this?
This was in like the Northridge-ish kind of area. This is a cakey donut with red, white, and blue sprinkles, which
You love America and the Supreme Court so much.
I was drawn to it because it was so colorful, and as I was like describing it to her, I was like, don't say the American one. Don't say the, give me the America donut. Well, let's try it. Okay. Let's see if it stacks up to the big names.
Yeah, it's a good cake donut.
It's pretty good. I want to say part of this is COVID, but I want it to be sweeter. But the cakiness is very good. It's moist and it's substantial. So